clean voters list that is based on proper house-to-house registration, biometric identification, transparent merit-based appointments, modernized and technocratic decision-making systems, greater transparency and accountability in deliberations and operations, an impartial chairperson of the Guyana Elections Commission. The EU observation missions raises serious concerns about the credibility of the voters list, which expanded by 15% in 2020 to a total of 757,690 registered voters. The situation is worsened by the government's unwillingness to release the census results of 2022 rather. A bloated voters list and a weak and outdated identity verification system results in electoral fraud. The system lacks modern biometric verification. Folios are illegible and photographs are decades old, resulting in voter impersonation and fraudulent voting. The PPPC uses these weaknesses to stay in power illegally. In the September 1st, 2025 general and regional elections, these weaknesses were exploited fully by the PPPC. Individuals took identity oaths knowing they were impersonating registered voters. The fact that no legal sanctions were applied against these people who were involved in blatant electoral fraud is evident that this was intentional by the PPPC. The absence of sanctions sends a powerful message of encouragement that the PPPC supporters can flout the law without fear of arrest or prosecution. The APNU reaffirms its demands for a clean and credible voters list, independent, data-driven verification processes, the use of modern digital identity and population tools. And we further support the EU's priority recommendations to update the voters list using reliable recent population data supported by digitization. The EU's observation mission documented widespread misuse of public resources for the ruling party's political advantage. These included state-funded inaugurations used by campaign events, or rather used as campaign events for the 2025 general and regional elections. State vehicles deployed for mobilization during the 2025 general and regional elections. Major expansions of the cash transfer program in the pre-election period by the PPPC, which is on record as opposing such cash transfers. Citizens receiving politically influenced calls tied to state benefits, and instances of pressure transferred, forced participation imposed on civil servants, clearly using fear as a tool to ensure compliance with the PPPC's dictates. Such unfair practices must be condemned by all right-thinking Guyanese. APNU fully supports the EU priority recommendations to implement clear, enforceable rules to prevent such misuse of state resources. Any government that uses taxpayers' resources to gaslight its citizens is not governing. It is engaged in state-sponsored psychological manipulation for self-serving political purposes. This kind of campaign creates a playing field that favors the PPPC and is harmful to the struggle for free, fair, and credible elections. Guyana cannot build trust or national unity when state institutions are weaponized against its citizens for partisan gain. The EU confirms that Guyana Campaign Finance Network is outdated, ineffective, and not enforced. The absence of transparency rules, realistic spending limits, oversight functions, and regulation of digital campaigning has created an unbalanced and opaque financial environment where the PPPC outspends the opposition by using state resources. Added to this is the fact that the system facilitates the bribery of citizens. This phenomenon risks entrenching financial oligarchs and stifling the will of the people. APNU, as such, endorses the EU call for the creation of an independent campaign finance oversight body. This institution should be established with the involvement and agreement of all stakeholders. Government must, without delay, modernize campaign finance legislation within this framework. This oversight body must not be another organization for the PPC to pack with its activists and thereby thwart the true intention of its creation. The EU report that up to 98% of election-related campaign coverage on state media favor the ruling PPPC. Independent journalists faced restrictions, reprisals, and limited access to state information. These findings confirm what APNU's own understanding that the national communication environment favors the government and excludes the opposition. APNU therefore supports the EU's recommendation to establish equitable media access rules, including independent oversight through a reformed GMBA. When the state media provides 98% positive coverage for the PPPC, it amounts to Goebbelian-level propaganda, that kind of onslaught we saw firsthand in the last election. This is not public service broadcasting. This is harmful political propaganda that is funded by taxpayers. The EU's final report makes clear that Guyana's elections are not credible, not because of isolated incidents, but because of systemic failures across multiple state institutions and the wider legal architecture. The election system needs a complete overhaul. APNU therefore calls on the government to immediately implement the EU priority recommendations before the next election, including reforms to the voters list, campaign finance laws, misuse of state resources, media fairness, data protection, and privacy. And also, we call on the government to release the 2022 population census without delay that costed taxpayers $2 billion. A modern electoral system cannot function without transparent population data. And thirdly, we must begin meaningful and genuine constitutional reform at once. The Constitutional Reform Commission must be empowered to address governance issues and begin its work immediately. And no doubt our colleague Ganesh Mahipur will tell us more about that as a commissioner himself on that commission. Fourthly, we must pass legislation restricting the use of state resources for political activities. APNU calls for the immediate passage of bipartisan legislation expressly prohibiting the use of state resources, including vehicles, public events, official staff, public offices, and social assistance programs for political and campaign purposes. This legislation must include strong, enforceable sanctions for anyone, including ministers and political workers and actors who violate the law. Without regulatory safeguards, the PPPC will continue to abuse the machinery of state to maintain political dominance and to remain in power illegally. The EU observation mission has confirmed what APNU and the Guyanese public have said for many years. Guyana cannot have free, fair, and credible elections without independent institutions, transparent systems, and modern laws. The government must now prove that it has the political will to act positively for Guyanese to have free, fair, and credible elections. Guyana stands at a crossroads with a dictatorial incumbent embracing a bloated and corrupted list that it exploits. This government is not attempting to win future elections, or the PPP is not intending to win future elections by earning the confidence of the Guyanese people. Instead, it is bent on manipulating institutions, controlling state resources, and exploiting weaknesses in the electoral system. We must all fight in Parliament, in the courts, and in every region across this country, in every community, to restore fairness, integrity, and credibility to this electoral process. It is not a partisan struggle. It is a national struggle for genuine democracy in Guyana. As we conclude, APNU notes that President Irfan Ali, took to social media to broadcast his government's rebuttal and dissatisfaction with the criticism of the EU's report. The president mistakenly believes his government is the only one that can conduct analysis. This is an arrogant posture. What is of significance from his muted tirade is that the president admitted to the world that his government called private citizens to ask for votes. This was repeated by his vice president's prior admission of the same illegal act. The issue is not calling citizens. The issue is that the government abused its power by using citizens' confidential and personal information garnered from government's cash transfer for political partisan aims. Therefore, his allegation that all political parties called citizens based on personal data or based on their personal data, it is absolutely false. APNU did not and objects to this false allegation. The president's corrupt government accessed citizens' cash grant or cash transfer data and used it to bribe voters by offering things like groceries. This is a disrespectful offer. But when a government enforces poverty and avoids developing people economically, a handout is an easy exchange for votes. APNU calls on Guyanese of every persuasion to join this fight for credible electoral systems. It does not matter which party you support. When the electoral process is free, fair, and transparent, and free from psychological and economical manipulation, election results are genuinely reflected and the will of the people is preserved. When governments know they must face a credible, honest system, they must respond to the concerns of citizens. Improving the electoral system will help every Guyanese, regardless of political affiliation. I thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open the floor for questions on the press statement. Do be reminded that you will do so by the raise of hand and state your media house. The floor is open for questions on the press statement. Ms. Khadija.
Hello, I don't have any questions on the press anymore.
All right, go ahead with your question. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Khadija, I'll start with please. Mr. Ubashnarai yesterday made quite a few allegations after he left the party regarding the leadership of the party not being willing to facilitate or participate with other members. He basically said that he was sidelined, and as it relates to outreaches and stuff like that, he said that they were being done without the collaboration and involvement of other members of the party. Could somebody maybe respond to those allegations? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Khadija. It's good to hear your voice. Let me start off by first of all saying that anybody who leaves our political party is an unfortunate loss. And we have great respect for everybody and their respective choices. So we don't hold that against anyone should they choose to leave. We want to thank him for his almost 7 years of service as a member of the PNCR. In terms of the allegations that were made, I will like to personally say that they're untrue because I was a part of the team that managed the campaign structure of the APNU. As you know, I was the vice presidential candidate, but outside of that, I also had the role of coordinating for trips in the respective regions, and several people were involved. I know that there were occasions where Mr. Narain was placed on teams to be in respective areas. I think he did attend the outreach in the public gathering, the meeting in Leguan. He was slated for Wakenham. Unfortunately, he did not make the Wakenham trip. He did give a reason why. I know he was also engaged in certain outreaches and campaign meetings on the East Coast, and there are others that he was slated for that he did not participate in. I know he also played additional roles, which I will not speak of here, but he knows them. It is unfortunate that when members seek to leave, they back it up with a series of allegations that I believe they know that are not true. And when you become a member of this party, you become a member through a group. So you become a member through a group and then you work your way, if I may use that term, to reach to the highest level, which is to serve at the Central Executive Committee. And if you're elected to one of our statutory offices, be it vice chair, be it chair, be it leader, and the general secretary, as we know, serves at the behest of the leader or at the pleasure of the leader. So Obraje's resignation letter, which I see he sent directly to the leader, will have to be now forwarded to his group chair, because by right, when you're resigning, you're supposed to resign from your group when you're an ordinary member. So it will have to be forwarded to his group chair for them to acknowledge and for them to take the necessary administrative aspect of doing it in terms of his membership and so on. And they will then communicate with the general secretary. But I want to say that his allegations are untrue, and we will not hold any beef with whatever he said. But we know it's not true. I trust that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you. I have a follow-up if it's okay. Mr. Mahipal, as the chief whip of the party, and as somebody who has had many years of experience in Parliament, we are approaching almost to a month since the first sitting of the National Assembly for this term, and the Speaker is yet to call the meeting for the election of the leader of the opposition. Do you think that this decision of his to not have had come?
I think,
I lost you, Khadija.
yes. While we wait on her to get back on, I see the hand of Mr. Mark Benchcock.
Hi, thank you so much. And Mr. Mahipal, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Mark.
And thank you, sir. This question is really to the floor. Mr. Duncan did speak of it. I know he will have a lot of popcorn to purchase in the aftermath of what the EU has said. But Mr. Duncan, we have every single elections, we hear the same thing. The observers come, the international observers, they come, they make recommendations, they say this, they say that, they say this needs to be done, that needs to be done. And then after they say what they have to say, we're back to square one. But the ironic thing is, what the EU has said is nothing new to what we all have already figured out. And we all have been saying this all along. The question is, what are you guys in APNU prepared to do at this point in time with regards to those recommendations? Again, nothing new what the EU is saying.
So, Mark, if I may assist my brother Sherrod Duncan, and I will do so by starting to tell you that the reason why we started 10 minutes late is because we were supposed to have a roundtable discussion with the EU today, and for whatever reason, it was postponed, and that led to me being here late. So, if I may assist my brother Duncan in giving you an update, that step one for us right now is to participate in this EU roundtable discussion, which is expected to attract all the other political parties and all the other stakeholders for elections so that we can discuss these recommendations and give our position in terms of where we stand as stakeholders with them. What we also intend to do is to follow up on these recommendations by advancing amendments to existing legislations so that we can lead the way in terms of the reform that is necessary. We also are part of the Constitutional Reform Commission, which is to focus on reforming the Constitution and to have addition for the for the inclusion in the changes that we want to see for elections 2031 going forward. I want to say that with reference to the Constitutional Reform Commission, a commission was sworn in. A commission is supposed to be in order. For whatever reason, we have not had a meeting from since I think July of or June of 2025. No communication that is of any way proper. But I did hear the AG indicate that because of the different configuration of the National Assembly, that there are certain changes that ought to be made, which is quite understandable so far. But the fact is, the existing commission is not meeting at this point in time. So I want to tell you that we don't intend to put the EU's report or no other report that is going to come from various other observer missions on a bookshelf and leave it to gather dust. We intend to make reference to them and to advance legislations to the point where we can make the changes. We want to also facilitate dialogue with the EU and all other observer missions for a follow-up exercise. And we want to call on them to not just down tools at this particular juncture where they just put the report out and leave it as that. We want to ask them to also facilitate follow-up mechanisms. We want to have them come back into Guyana and do an update to see how far the country has advanced. And I've always said that we are a nation still building on our democracy, and we require the external help, and we are thankful for the report in its current construct and all the other reports that will come. We will thank them when that reaches us also, but we want to also do these levels of follow-up. I trust that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. But as you would know, and Mr. Duncan and others would know, these issues are nothing new. These are issues that Guyanese have been outlining, the opposition politicians, everyone have been saying these things over and over. What makes the EU's position so unique that you guys now have to follow up what the EU has to say and didn't do the necessary homework before?
Okay, so let me say first of all, for 5 years and more, we have been saying that the list is bloated. For 5 years and more, we have been saying that there is need for biometrics at the place of poll. For 5 years and more, we have been outside of GCOM calling for a clean voters list because we do believe that with a credible list, you will get credible elections, which will give you credible results. I will refresh your memory. Perhaps you do remember, but allow me to repeat it. The APNU AFC in government began the process of a house-to-house registration with the full intent of ensuring that we have a credible list of electors. It was stopped by a court process, and we indicated afterwards that we are prepared with our members of parliament to advance, participate, and cooperate for all forms of reform to any legislation so that we can go back to house registration. There is no doubt that we need a clean voters list in this country. There is no doubt that, that the list of electors is where the problem is, and we have to rectify that. We have seen several studies and several positive happenings in other countries where biometrics are facilitated in elections. And we have clear cases to continue to advance our call. We have to appeal also to the Guyanese people. They have to speak up to it. Can't be just an APNU fight. It's a fight for Guyana, and it requires all of Guyana to participate. If we decide not to fight for it, then the government will continue to ride us, and we can't afford to have that. So the Guyanese people also have to participate in the call for credible elections via a credible list. And we will appeal to them, and we will go around this country and continue to advance the case where we need a clean voters list.
And you know, as Danish said, after a very long time, we've seen the national community, we mentioned 5 years of going after these issues, aligning with what we've been saying all along. And the EU must be thanked for putting the experts and the analysts behind this election in such a meaningful way. And I think they are the ones who said they had a observer mission before, during, and now after the election, they will continue to observe. That is the kind of emphasis we need in this country now that we're spending billions of dollars. And we, as you've said, Mark, we've been talking about these issues all along, but the EU has done this study on it. We knew state resources were being misused and people were being pressured. We kept saying it all along. The EU got the evidence, and they've put out this very substantive report. And we're going to be pushing not only at home, but abroad, because we have been talking about that diaspora push. How do we continue and make new advances in engaging the international community on these issues? If we want democracy, we can't only have cosmetic democracy, which is what the PPP wants, a cosmetic democracy. Look what's happening with GCOM. GCOM is manufacturing problems not to do its own work. Why is it 3 months outside of the September election, we have a comprehensive report from the EU, but we can't have one from GCOM? GCOM is putting impediments in its own way to look at its own system to move forward. Why is it we can't have more consistent meetings of the National Assembly? We got business in the National Assembly. We have a legislative agenda we've started to outline to this country, a legislative agenda. We have a work program that we want to pursue in the National Assembly in the interest of the people of this country. So we want to see an opposition leader swear in and us to move forward. Beyond an opposition leader, we want to see certain issues on the national agenda in which GCOM and the electoral system is one of them. So we're going to advance lots of these recommendations from the EU and the Commonwealth of the Commonwealth, the Carter Center. I think we had one other. The OAS had a mission too. We don't think that they're going to be dissimilar from what the EU is saying, unless they're going further. But we believe more than just reports, we're going to advance some of these recommendations in foreign capitals, because we believe that the broader EU, the broader Europe, the broader North American countries should have a say. We've already seen the Canadian ambassador and High Commission, for instance, saying that we ought to be pursuing some of these issues for the revamping of GCOM, the revamping of the electoral system. So we are considering a broad approach. The EU have submitted their report. We're waiting on the others as well. And so we consolidate all of them. And you're going to see a lot of footwork on these issues, not only locally, but internationally as well.
I mean, if I may also add, Mark, this report adds as a form of collaboration. And I can say in our community engagement, which we have, you would recognize, we are very active in that. The issues surrounding elections, what has been happening in terms of all the irregularities, those things are coming up. And we are able to engage our people of this country on a one-on-one basis. So I can tell you, they are being edified as to what is happening too. So when there is a need and a call for action, for the action on in relation to this, I can tell you our people will be mobilized.
So let me before you go, Mark.
If I'm allowed,
Mark, just now, before you go, I wanted to also make this point. Every meeting that we have had with ambassadors and the diplomatic community, all the foreign dignitaries we normally would showcase on our social media Facebook platform, and people wondered what is it that we discussed. We discussed with them, among several other issues, the importance of them not coming a week before elections. We discussed with them that elections in Guyana is a process. We said to them that the date of election is just a part of the entire electoral process. So this report, we saw it so well documented and detailed, and it shows evidence that they themselves experience, and that's because they have been here longer than a week. Previous elections, we know of observer missions coming in a week or two before the elections, and then they would deploy their various staff to various areas. They would say it's a smooth process. They would say that it was fair and what's not. But because the EU mission was here, I think, well over a month or more, they were able to see, they were able to document, they were able to observe. So we consider this as a win for the APNU in the sense that we begged, we pleaded for them to not treat election as a one-day event or a one-week event, but it requires observation. I personally would glad, and I know the APNU would also, if they can be in this country for the entire period, the 5 years period before we get to the next elections. There they will see and observe in Parliament the amendments that are being made to legislations. They will see how it can impact elections, like what happened with the birth certificate law that was amended that allowed for people to easily get a birth certificate and led to registration to be a part of the National Registrar of Registrants, which saw the extraction of their names to be on the electoral list. They were able to see for themselves that Commonwealth people are in this country working, not necessarily with the purpose of being domiciled in Guyana, as opposed to having their children, their family going to school, spending life like if they want to be a Guyanese in that, after that 1 year period. There are people who are here actually working and taking their money and sending it back to their country to support their family. It happens to be longer than a 1 year period, which the PPP has abused to get them registered. We saw a bus coming with a set of, I think it was Bangladeshis, to get them to vote because they had the ID cards and so on. So I think all of these things the EU was able to observe because of their duration of stay. And we welcome that. What we want now is for us to move in the direction of fixing the system. And the government has an opportunity to display maturity. They have an opportunity to display that they genuinely want a real democracy and they genuinely want a one-man, one-vote case, as opposed to this bloated list and this, in a nutshell, I think the EU said to us in very nice language that the elections was not free and fair. They said it was not free and fair. That is if you want to put it in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to follow up or should I wait, Madam Moderator?
You can go
If
ahead
there's
with
someone
your
else.
follow-up, and
Yeah.
then I'll take Khadija, and I have a
Thank you.
question online.
Thank you, thank you. So, it baffles me that we have to wait for the EU to come and tell us that the elections were not free and fair. But I'm glad that the EU is echoing the sentiments of majority of Guyanese. We said the same in 2020. It fell on deaf ears, and we're now doing the same thing in 2025. The elections were not free and fair. They were rigged and manipulated by the PPP. Having said that, how much confidence you guys, and when I say you guys, I mean the APNU, the 12 MPs and other executives of the APNU, how much confidence you guys have in GCOM now? Knowing that the list is fraudulent, knowing that the list is bloated, entering into the upcoming local government elections. What are you guys going to do, knowing that the list is corrupt?
Mark, we have no confidence in GCOM. None. As long as Claudette Singh stays there, we cannot have any confidence in GCOM because she has displayed time and again what she is about. And knowing that she has basically dismantled GCOM by way of not calling for meetings and, as she claimed, waiting on the leader of the opposition to make nominations, I don't know that is within her purview. If the matter requires legal review, let it go to the competent authority, which is the judiciary, to conduct such a legal review. But if she's going to question the appointment of the 3 opposition commissioners, then it requires her to question her own appointment. And it speaks to the quorum and constitutionality. If you are going to disregard those 3, then the 4 that remains cannot be constitutional. Because to have a meeting, you require government and opposition to be present. And if you have disregarded, Claudette, that is, disregarded the 3 opposition, then it means that you should be disregarded too. And I wonder if she's still collecting the $2-point-something million a month, given that she refuses to accept that the commission is supposed to still be functioning. And in the absence of the commission, you have to wonder, what is it that Vishnu and his other colleagues are doing at the secretariat? And is it really value for money? What work are they doing? Who are they getting instructions from? Which board or commission is supervising what they're doing? Is it a waste of resource now? GCOM is currently an agency of the state that is not functioning within the functions it is supposed to be carrying out for the state. And we don't have any confidence in GCOM. We do believe that Claudette needs to pack up, go home, and take a rest. We do believe she has tarnished her reputation and that of the country enough, and it's time for her to go. And we cannot have any confidence in GCOM. We will continue to advocate, push, and ensure that we represent this country, or the 12 that you made reference to, for the interest of, within the legal parameters, of course, to ensure that we advance a case of having a reform at GCOM. And that is also what I have been advancing at the Constitutional Reform Commission, along with Sherwood Law, and we intend to continue to push for that.
And what we also have in our favor, we have time. It's very early in the 5-year term. The local government elections are also on the horizon, and so we have time to fix the structural issues at GCOM and even the legislative issue. If the government is as democratic and wanting the best for our citizens as they claim they want, then we have time to fix these things. But we got to act now. The ball is in their court. As we said, GCOM is creating issues not to have meetings. The parliament that we could be, creating some headway on some of these issues on, don't seem to want to meet with regularity. The ball is in the PPP court, and our Dexter Todd is the legal practitioner here. We've seen in the past, for instance, when young Dazel, one of the attorneys for GCOM, had a decision that they didn't like, and then she's no longer the attorney for GCOM. And then we saw the other gentleman, De Silva, he had an opinion that they didn't like. He's out of the way, and so GCOM don't seem to want the kind of reforms that is necessary for, at the end of the day, for Guyanese to have credible and valid votes in credible election and results. And that is the trouble that we have. We have the time on our side now, and it is up to the government whether they want to kick this can down the road and claim that they're out of time. We have time for biometrics. We have time for the systematic reforms. And GCOM of itself should find it concerning the red flags that the EU has raised in this report. And as we said, no doubt the other observation and observer missions are going to raise in their reports as well.
Thank you.
So before let me make this very clear, as pellucid as I can be. Let me make this as pellucid as I can be. The APNU is prepared to cooperate and work double overtime for all measures to implement the recommendations of the EU so that we can have credible elections in Guyana. We are prepared to work double overtime and cooperate fully for a clean voters list, for biometrics at place of poll, for us to ensure that we have laws in place to guarantee Guyana credible elections. And once we get that as a nation, then I'm sure the EU report will be less damning as it is today.
All right. I have Miss Khadija. I don't know if her mic is back on. And then I have another question via WhatsApp and another person waiting as well. Miss Khadija, is your mic on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you now.
Okay, perfect. So last question. Either Mr. Duncan or Mr. Michael, I understand that there's no timeline set to determine when the speaker has to call the election for the leader of the opposition. But could you say for the record, what are some of the issues that may arise should the speaker decide to not call for that election anytime soon? What are some of the activities, or what are some of the things that they can do without the leader of the opposition in this?
Well, I have said to you before, by the way, I am the whip of the APNU, not the chief whip. The chief whip is the whip that really is for the opposition in total. And by virtue of Win Party having 16 seats, we having 12, and Amanza 1, the obvious, I have said openly on social media that, of course, once people vote along party lines, the opposition leader will come from Win. That's something that we know. Let me say that I have noted in the public space also that Win signaled their intention to seek legal recourse, which is within their rights, and we respect that. The position of the APNU is that the office is a constitutional office. The leader of the opposition is a constitutional office, and it ought to be filled. It cannot be left vacant. If we allow that to happen, then it means we are aiding and abetting with the PPP to advance undemocratic practices, and the APNU is not about that. It's a constitutional office, and it has to be filled. The action is within the hands of the speaker, and he has to know why he is behaving like this and why he's acting like that. I must point to 2011 when 2011 it was David Granger who was appointed leader of the opposition, or elected leader of the opposition, and his election was done 4 days after the first sitting of the National Assembly, where he took the oath of office as a member of parliament. And then subsequently, 4 days after he became leader of the opposition, being elected. In 2015, it was Barrett Jagdeo who was elected leader of the opposition, and his election came 67 days after the first sitting of the National Assembly. But I must put that into context, because I don't want anybody to go away here thinking that it was Bartland Scotland, who was the speaker at the time, who took 67 days. Not so. What happened, as one would recall, the People's Progressive Party did not come to Parliament when it was summoned. So on the day when it was for the swearing in of MPs, they did not show up. And they did not show up for the first, second, third calling. I think they did not show up. And on the fourth or fifth calling, they showed up. And that is when they took the oath of office. And when they took the oath of office, then afterwards, the leader of the opposition was elected. You cannot be elected leader of the opposition unless you take the oath of office as a member of parliament. And that is what caused it to be delayed and made it look as though it was 67 days after the first calling. In 2020, the first sitting was called on the 1st of September, and the leader of the opposition was elected on the 1st of September. So again, I say to you that the action is within the hands of the Speaker. WIN has signaled that they intend to take legal actions, and our position as APNU is that it's a constitutional office and it ought to be filled.
And in addition to what Ganesh has said, coming up in January, the PP has already signaled they want an early budget. There's some key functions in that budgetary period for the leader of the opposition. So they will have to, they're coming up to a wall that they themselves will have to have a question on. In addition to that, I wanted to add to what Ganesh is saying, that the APNU, PNCR, we are fired up and ready to go. We have parliamentary work to do. We've already submitted a number of questions, a number of bills and motions. We intend to use this legislative assembly's time every single time we meet. And for us, we can't meet often enough. We got some issues with the National Resource Fund, some issues with the GRA. I know Ganesh is pushing some issues with procurement. We want to see some issues with artificial intelligence, migration. We got some issues with drone technology and how that is being used on every front, in every ministry, on every front, legal and otherwise, social and otherwise. We have already submitted a number of questions. We are eager to get to work in the National Assembly. We hope that we meet on a much more regular basis than we are meeting currently, but we're not only waiting on that. As Dexter and Ganesh said, we are hitting the ground. We are taking these issues directly to the people. We are already feeling out some economic issues as we head into this budget period. Almost what the Guyanese people want, we know what the PP have been pushing, and it seems to be 180 on what the people want. We'll continue to advance that the party's work program, the APNU's work program on the ground, and we are calling for the assembly to meet as often as possible for us to advance our parliamentary agenda.
Thank you. I have a question here from Mr. Travis Chase, Nightly News. Given the recent revelations surrounding the car dealership tax evasion scheme with roots in Ghana, what is the PNC's position? Would you say it warrants an investigation locally?
Yes, a forensic investigation. It warrants a forensic investigation. All dealings concerning evasion of taxes and the likes, all the exposures and so on, it warrants a forensic investigation. So in short, we support the call for a forensic investigation.
Thank you. Mr. Dunstan, I believe he's online. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
All right. Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. I do have two questions here that I want to ask. As a matter of fact, this is Dunstan Wilson from News Ghana 24. Some of you might be hearing and seeing some things there on social media. Now, in respect to the EU report, I think that report was it was a critical report that gave some serious reviews in respect to what happened in respect to the elections. Now, the first question here I want to ask, and there's a reason why I'm asking this question. Let me see. What steps will APNU take to improve its visibility and engagement in Guyana following the report? Now, the reason why I'm asking this question during the election, a lot of persons reached out and kept asking, what is APNU doing? And the reason why I'm asking this at this moment is that in respect to social media, when it comes to TikTok, when it comes to Facebook and all the others, APNU for some reason seems to have multiple accounts. So persons for some reason can't find information. Now, if you look at the Win Party, they have to reinvest, and then they also have a team behind it. If you look at PPP, they have the People Progressive Party page, and then also they have all the others. And if you look there on that chart, it shows clearly all the, in terms of the support. And when you look at balanced media, for some reason, APNU seems to be, that you really can't find APNU. So going forward to the elections that's coming up in 2030 or 2031, how do you plan to navigate and have a presence in all of these areas? And then I can ask a follow-up question after.
All right, let me start off by saying thanks to, and I should do this, I should have done this earlier. Let me say thanks to, I think it's HGP Nightly News and News Source Guyana, the two media outlets that were basically given kudos and for their involvement in terms of equal showtime on their media outlets for the political parties. And I think that that's a step in the right direction, and they have demonstrated that, and they ought to be singled out for that. It is with great shame, however, that I have to also, in the same breath, call out the Guyana Chronicle, and I think it's NCN and the radio station, the Voice of Guyana. They were exposed for their, I think it's 98% of their coverage focused on the People's Progressive Party. And part of the reform that we are advancing is one where there has to be a clear differentiation between a government and a political party. A government is responsible for the state, and the political party advances their political cause. And we have seen the abuse in the media. Guyana National Broadcasting Authority ought to take blame also for not doing their work properly. It is with great shame that we have been expending resources, the state's resource, me and you money, have been going to these entities, and they have been using it in a way to advance a political party's cause. When an outlet, when an observer mission can say 98% of the coverage was focused on one political party, that news outlet that is funded by state resource has really become an agency or an arm of a political party. And those are things that we cannot afford to have in our country. And that is why when Sherrod speaks to cosmetic democracy, he's not wrong. We are operating with a cosmetic democracy, optic politics, where they say that they have XYZ agencies in place, but then they end up populating it with political lackeys that are not advancing the intention that the boards and the commissions and so on were expected to advance. So to come directly to your question now in terms of what steps APNU will take in terms of its visibility, I want to say we have already been acting in the phase of advancing our visibility. We have had several outreaches in several regions. Our members of parliament are out in the fields. We see from social media the presence of several of our MPs all across Guyana, meeting the people. We are gathering information, we are collecting data, and we are listening to the people for them to tell us what is it that they expect to see from us. We are not sitting in our chairs and making decisions without it being informed. Right now, across the regions, a schedule is being put together, a master schedule to capture all the regions, and we will continue to make ourselves present in the faces of the people. And we have also been working hard to streamline our platforms, our social media platforms. We also have a website that is up and running, providing information. And we advise that people can like our post, comment, join, subscribe, and all the likes. I don't have to tell you what role Shara Duncan is playing in the media. In fact, I will tell you, my parents actually told me don't call them between 8 and 9 because that time they're very busy looking at In the Ring. And then we know he also has a morning program. I think it's called FYI for your information. And we are also going to look to start up more programs so that we can advance the message and inform the population. I can also tell you that we are working right now on starting a program to deal with the Auditor General's reports because we have not examined at the Public Accounts Committee the Auditor General's report from since 2020 to now. We have not even completed 2019. So it is necessary for us as a party to expose the findings of the Auditor General and to speak of the recommendations that were made since 2020 and to show you how it has not been followed and abused. Because we saw Irfan Ali took, I think, about 30 minutes of his timetable to speak to the Auditor General's report. I know everybody thought it was the cash grant announcement. I also thought so. But instead, he found the time to talk about the Auditor General's report. But he did not tell us about the series of recommendations yet to be implemented by his government. So we are taking measures to become more visible in the eyes of the public.
Thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Mark Benchcroft.
Yeah, thank you. Old age, man. Sound like Adam Harris for a minute. But as it pertains to, and this question is for the lawyer, Mr. Dexter Todd, Dr. Todd. As it pertains to, which is not new, but the aggressive attack on the judiciary and attacks on individuals who do not keep in line or speak the language of the PPP or say anything that is supportive of the PPP. We see the likes of Mr. Irfan Ali and the Attorney General and everybody just going after individuals, attacking them. How healthy is this for a democracy? And how much do you see that as an interference with regards to the other branches of government, such as the judiciary and the legislative, not being able to do their job as a result of government interference and blatant unnecessary attacks?
Thank you, Mark. Well, I can tell you from a party's position, we do not support at all any attacks or any unwarranted comments to members of the bench. This, I believe, is, and this has happened, I think, on more than one occasion, where the PPP leadership have been very vocal and sometimes almost insulting in terms of personal attacks on judges and magistrates, etc. This undermines the independence and the reputation of the judiciary. And therefore, I can say without any forms of contradiction that this will not be something that will be supported by this party. We will condemn in the strongest means all forms of attack. We exist in Guyana, as in many other parts of the Commonwealth Caribbean, in a hierarchical structure. And therefore, if you are in disagreement with a judgment of a lower court, you take it to a higher court. And if this is an issue where there has been a misinterpretation of the law, then you fight and plead your case at an appellant level and allow the judgment to be overturned. But you cannot, as you would have rightly noted, anytime APNU has been in disagreement with a judgment, we have always been very careful in our language so that it comes across respectful, but while it's respectful, we take it to another level. That's not the PPP. The PPP's approach is that when they see a judgment that they believe is not in line with what they want, they come out with all forms of attack on the judiciary, and we condemn that. It is not something that should happen. It does not send a good message in relation to the reputation and the independence of the judiciary at the level that it should be sending from the PPP standpoint. So therefore, I can tell you that many of the members of the bench, and I call on the Bar Association as well, because these are things that the Bar Association ought to be spotting very quickly and to be condemning. But we have seen quite a silence in relation to that. We have seen in terms of the Attorney General, he started some unfortunate comments in relation to judgment. And you know, sometimes when I laugh, Mark, when we talked about this whole concept of subjudice, and I'm saying we sometimes persons are interpreting this concept in the narrowest way, and we are not using it as widely, contextualizing it as widely as possible to understand. If you intend to go to a higher court, or if you have appealed a matter, stay silent. But when you come out with demonstrating your government's position on a point, it can be tantamount to intimidation. These members of the judiciary are members of society. They have families. And we need to understand that type of political pressure, interference, whatever you want to term it, must be condemned, because the judiciary must be allowed to dispense with justice in a manner that is fitting and how they interpret it. If they interpret it wrong, we go to another level until it's rectified.
And I just wanted to point it very quickly. While Dr. Todd was talking about the judgments, if some of the judgments we've had over the last 5 years against this government, I mean, no sitting government should be able to endure that if we vote according to issues. You had the judgment with the Ghana Teachers Union, right? In which the court said that the Jews supposed to be paid over to the union. Still, the government is not complying with that. We have the parent company guarantee judgment, and in each case, we have seen this same kind of vitriol against the judiciary that, as Dr. Todd so eloquently articulated, cannot stand, and it is untenable in any country that espouses democratic credentials. And judgment after judgment we've seen over the last 5 years, the courts in this country have been saying the government has acted ultra vires unconstitutionally, and the government takes to the airwaves and abuses the court in this manner. In the issue of the parent company guarantee, they said the judge didn't understand island gas matters. He wasn't studied in this area. And in the teaching service commission issue, the man didn't understand right to strike and a whole host of issues. And then similarly, in this issue concerning the tax regime, Irfan seemed to be posturing as an expert in taxation. You know, it leaves a lot to be desired.
He may be an expert. But Mark, before you go, I heard Dr. Todd saying that he's calling on the Bar Association, and we must indeed ask ourselves, why is the Bar Association so silent on this matter? And additionally, we must ask ourselves, why is the judiciary silent on this matter? Outside of Madam Justice Roxanne George, sitting on the bench, ruling in matters and so on as the competent authority, she's also the chancellor of the judiciary acting, and she must also protect her flock. The judiciary is an arm of government. The speaker takes charge of the National Assembly, the legislative arm. The president takes charge of the executive arm, and the chancellor of the judiciary takes charge of the judiciary. And we have to also call on her to protect her flock.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Finally, at least for me, are you guys a bit concerned that there are individuals who are sanctioned, four of whom are Guyanese, and the government isn't saying anything about those sanctioned individuals? What measures in place to go after those individuals? One, and the other is one of those guys being a senior member of the Guyana Police Force. Are you guys concerned that, according to reports, that individual is still a serving member receiving salaries from taxpayers? What is your take on that? And my final question, it's regards to the government's approach, their sudden love for the people of Georgetown, the people of Tiger Bay and other places that we have seen them neglected for the past 20-something years. They suddenly have a love for these people. Are you concerned that the approach by the local government is basically usurping the powers of City Hall? I know Mr. Duncan is a former deputy mayor, and I know Mr. Manny Paul, you being former shadow minister of local government. And I ask this question because of this sudden love that PDP has for Georgetown, when they are starving the city council of hundreds of millions of dollars. Do you think if they pay their monies owed to City Hall, that City Hall will be able to function and do these very things that players running around taking photographs and trying to score cheap political points? Thank you, gentlemen.
So I'm going to leave the Tiger Bay question and the local government question really to Sherrod. And reason being, he has submitted a motion reference to the Tiger Bay issue to the National Assembly, so I'll leave that for him. With reference to the senior police officer and still receiving salary, a question was submitted asking the Minister of Home Affairs to provide the clarification on the case of the senior officer still receiving a salary. Outside of that, when budget comes up also, we will be asking several questions pertaining to the government officials that were sanctioned, which includes the police officer and the former permanent secretary at the Ministry of Home Affairs, so that we can ascertain and have clarity in terms of that. Outside of that, we have some other mechanisms in place where we're trying to gather information as it relates to the salaries that they may be in receipt of from government. So that's how I want to answer that question. We know also that the sanctioned individuals, it does not stop there. The United States, I'm sure, and other agencies, whomever else is included, are carrying out their further investigation. And I believe that they will pronounce, given their investigation, they will pronounce at the right time, which will give us the opportunity to have more information to know directly what is going on. As we can see, after sanctions, several other things can follow. We are not in a position to say what is happening reference to the United States and their investigation, but we hope that they continue to do what they have to do and hold individuals who are violating the law accountable and take the necessary actions so that we can guarantee safety and security of our people, and we can live in a democracy that is real. Right now, it doesn't feel so, but we're hoping that we do get to that stage.
We love the city of Georgetown. We love it. We've been a part of it. From a political party doing our hustlings, we've been a part of the city and we've contributed to that. And we have worked along with all of the stakeholders in the city of Georgetown. That 2015 to 2020 period was a very special period in this city. This city was kept clean throughout that entire period without any fanfare. Every single day we got up and kept it clean. And you had a government that was working with the city, not because the city council was managed by persons from the same party as persons who were in government in that period, because we understand the significance of a city. People travel to cities. You don't go to the USA per se. You go to JFK. You go to Queens. You go to New York. You don't come to Guyana per se. You come to Port Georgetown. That's how the world works. And so you have a national capital city, and Georgetown has to be returned to that city that is set on a hill. We couldn't get the PPP councillors 2015 and 2020 to work with us, and we wanted to work with them, but they were instructed by the then opposition leader Barjaglio not to work with the government, And so, as councillors, as opposition, they didn't want to work with City Hall. As a government, they don't want to work with City Hall either. Lots of the things that this government is parading is not new. Ganesh will tell you, as a person who shadowed this area, it was under the APNU AFC government that stipends were raised. Subventions were raised without oil money. We were taking care of this city, meeting the sanitation bill without oil money. We developed a solid waste management policy for the city of Georgetown. We were interested in improving the transportation efficiency. The smart city solution happened under the APNU AFC government because we want to secure our city. That happened under the last government. So when we see and hear what this government is doing, it is such a haphazard thing. The government in 2015, 2020 operated differently. I was a councillor, as you said. I was deputy mayor for a period of that time, and I saw the central government come to City Hall and consult with the city, and we could have said we in government there, so we don't need to talk to our councillors, but we treated them as a separate aspect of governance. They are the local government level. Central government does its thing the way it is structured legally, but the government took the time to come to City Hall. I think City Hall was addressed by President Granger at least twice in that 5-year tenure. The president came to City Hall and lay out what is his vision for not only the country but for Georgetown. That happened. I don't think anybody of any major political figure outside of the minister has ever gone to City Hall. Some people are hearing about City Hall for the very first time. They were never interested in the city. They were never interested in moving some of these issues forward. As a matter of fact, quite contrary, they called some of their big business friends, and we love the private sector, and they told them not to pay the taxes, not to be involved in any re-evaluation of property, and all of that was meant to stymie the work of City Hall. And that has been the historical angle that the sitting government has taken as it concerns City Hall. So we laugh when we see this sudden love for the city. We love the people from Tiger Bay. That is our constituency. That is our constituency. I saw one man saying he got friends there and he know people there a long time. That is our constituency. They got people who work in this building where we are currently, who reside in that area. We understand the rhythm of life in that area because we have come from that kind of setting. And I mean, the national poet Martin Carter has a poem that says, "I come from the nigger yard of yesterday." That's the title of the poem, right? That is our lived experience. So you can't come and lecture us now about wanting to improve the livelihoods of people in that part of the city. But we've seen these sporadic interventions that have fizzled out. And so we've taken careful note of this. We want the advancement of every aspect of city life. Tiger Bay, All Boys Town, and there are people who live on dams in various parts of the city. We want the upliftment of all of the citizens of this country, and we want that for Georgetown, because the rising tide must float all boats. But we've seen consistently with the PPP, only some boats floated. And that's why we're asking for the plans to be laid for City Hall. Or is the government doing what it has always done? You wake up with an idea and you start implementing, right? You go and do a whole host of things, and then you try to tie it together in some systematic way. And we know that they're not about system. That's why we're asking through the National Assembly for those plans to be laid. We want to be part of moving the city forward. We believe that we are responsible stakeholders, and we want to see what is their take, some of the plans. We want the plans to be laid at the level of the parliament because it will entail budgeting. We've seen no line item in the 2025 budget for any with the kinds of model community they want to make City Hall. There just isn't the fiscal capacity there. There's no line item which that can be pulled from. And so they will definitely have to be budgeting for it in the 2026 budget. And we're eager to interrogate that kind of line item and add to it.
And Sherrod speaks to nothing that they are doing, nothing that the government is doing is new. And he made mention to that. I remember during the 2015 to 2020 period, the government Meet the People is an APNU AFC initiative. It was Joseph Harmon who pioneered that initiative. And we used to have government Meet the People in all the regions across this country. We had in Region 9, we had in Region 10, we had in Region 6, we had in Region 5, right here in Region 4. I remember all the ministries and their important staff that speaks to, that deals with the public. They assembled at Square of the Revolution there under those big tents, and people, the public, used to come and they can speak to whether it's GWI issues, GPL issues, and whichever other issues they have, NIS issues and the likes, and everything was being addressed. We had in Region 3, we had in Region 2, we had in Region 10. All the ministers, they had public days when the public can go and reach them outside of that. So what even this that you see Irfan doing now in Region 6 is not something new. It's something that they have seen the APNU AFC did, and now they're doing the same. And I remember in 2015, 2016, when I was at Region 3, Essequibo Islands, West Demerara, and the policy of the APNU AFC at the time was to not exclude anyone. Even the regional chairman who was PPP, Julius Faber, and the vice chairman who was Inshan Ayub. The REO was given clear instructions by the Minister of Communities at the time, Ronald Bulkan, to involve them in the planning, the preparation, the execution, because the interest of promoting social cohesion was genuine and real, and we wanted a unified Guyana. And they said to us that they received political instructions not to participate in anything the APNU AFC is executing. So the PPP has always been hypocritical to this country. They have always not been genuine, and they don't genuinely want betterment for the people of Guyana. They are all about themselves. They're all about filling their pockets, and they're all about getting rich and using taxpayers' money to do so in a partisan way to benefit themselves, their friends, and their families and favorites.
And just to add quickly to that, Ghana should remember as well that we used to have an organization for mayors, specifically for mayors, GAM, that was resuscitated under the APNU government because we appreciate local government. There was also annual conferences for local government bodies, annual conferences. All of that has been done away with. It was to the credit of the Minister of Local Government then, who formulated the booklet. What do you call that? For Ronald Bulkan, who formulated the manual as how councils and so on must conduct themselves and so on. All of that we undertook as a local government bodies in 5 years without oil money. In addition to that, a number of townships were established under the last government. We believe in this kind of structure, that local government has a role. I remember by rote Mr. Granger saying that the first contact of a citizen with government is the local government level, and that is why this heavy emphasis was on the local government system. It's a system that we believe in, that is the pulse of this nation, but under a government like this, it doesn't have an appreciation for system. Everything is convoluted.
Thank you. And with there being no other questions, I want to thank our panelists and of course our media personnel joining today, and of course you, our viewing audience on all our social media platforms. We want to thank you for joining us, and we hope you do have a wonderful weekend.
Imagine 18 hours of blackout, and you're telling people, Big Bird Transportation Service, we specialize in safe, fast, and dependable delivery transportation for businesses and individuals. Whether you're sending a small package across town or need scheduled deliveries for your company, we're here to make sure your items arrive on time, every time. Our team is committed to providing efficient logistics solutions with a personal touch. With a fleet of well-maintained vehicles and experienced drivers, we handle every delivery with care, from pickup to drop-off. Why choose Big Bird? On-demand and scheduled deliveries. Local and regional coverage. Secure and professional handling. Customer-first service. Call us today at 929-329-9938 and let Big Bird take your deliveries to the next level.